Hello, this is Adedoyin Jaiyesimi here, and welcome to my YouTube channel. And today I'm going to be discussing something that really affects communications professionals, not just in Africa, but to be honest, across the world. A lot of times we hear people ask us what the value of the work that we're doing is, what we're bringing to the table. And I used to be really, really upset with those statements like, do you think my work is just to come for fancy events, write a press release? But over the years, especially more recently, as I've begun to just study and really give myself to understanding how communications and public relations contribute towards supporting organizational outcomes, I've realized that there is a gap. There is a gap in terms of even our own understanding of the kind of value that we add to the table. So this year, I've spent a bit of time taking different groups of people through what exactly is your value and how do you articulate it. And it's been very, very interesting to see the light bulb moments, to see their perspective change. And I thought, you know what, I can't just leave it to the close groups of people. Let me bring it to YouTube. Let me do a quick video on this topic that affects every single one of us. And I stumbled on a research about the communication value circle, which is what I will talk us through in this video. It's quite academic, but it's very, very enlightening in the way that it shows how key dimensions of communications actually has an importance in terms of achieving corporate strategy. Because once you're able to know the linkages, then when they come to you with that question, what is your value? You are absolutely very, very clear. So I hope that this video, you would be able to see how you can begin to position yourself firstly as someone who delivers value on the metrics that are important to your organization. And secondly, how you can stand up for yourself and really answer that question about what value that you bring to the table without feeling offended or without feeling like a victim, because it's not enough for us to say, oh, we're valuable. We must be able to show it. We must be able to defend it with our results. So it also means that you must deliver the right results. So this is me talking too much. I'm going to take you through the communication value circle, and I hope that you find it very insightful. Okay, so let's get right into it. How do you define and articulate your value as a communications professional? I want to start by sharing this initial slide. Have you heard these words before? How is communication slash public relations contributing to the bottom line? I've heard that a number of times. What is the value of the work that you're doing? I heard this more at the beginning of my career, not so much now. And is it not just to? I think that this is perhaps the most annoying, especially when they bring you last minute to the conversation and they're like, is it not just to? I'm like, no, is not just to. There is more involved in the work that I am doing. So I'm sure a number of you would have heard this. And if you've never heard it before, that means you've been working with forward thinking organizations and forward thinking bosses literally all your life and career journey. So we're talking about demonstrating value, and honestly, it has to start from us understanding what it is that we are bringing to the table. You People cannot see the value that you bring if you don't even know the value that you bring, and that's why I am doing this video, to really expand your mind. I think we all know that communications is important. We all know that this is all the things that we do, or these are all the things that we do. These are the tactics and everything. We know the hours we put in, we know the brain work, the creativity, and everything. But how do we bring all of that together and really, really showcase the value is what I am all about. Now, one of the first things you need to know in demonstrating value is that you need to be able to make and deliver real impact. It's not enough to say that we've been working around the clock, we're doing social media campaigns, we're doing all of these events. If all of these things are not contributing or making a difference to organizational outcomes, goals, and objectives, we are just working. So if you've watched my strategic communications course, for example, you know that I always say that the beginning of every communication strategy process is really to know what does your organization want to achieve, because that would help you to align your activities, your strategy, and your tactics to make sure that you're delivering the results that your organization wants to see. And that's where value is really demonstrated. They must be able to see, even if it's not a very direct line. Yes, it's not in all situations that communications contributes directly to the bottom line, but our activities and the things that we do creates leads. It has indirect connection, but because we are not being strategic, we're not being mindful of it, other people are taking credit for results that communication spurred or stirred. So ask yourself, am I making or delivering real impact? Secondly, you must be able to give advice, counsel, guidance, and recommendation on the impact of business trends and other contextual activities from a communications perspective. What this means is that you need to be quite a versatile and dynamic professional. It's not just about knowing communications trends and principles alone. Again, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that I'm always encouraging you. If you work in the corporate space, please read business books, read autobiographies or biographies of business people, understand a bit of what is going on in the economy. Same thing if you work in the development sector. What are the development issues that are trending right now? What is the landscape right now? You need to be able to know, because when you know and you have an understanding, you're able to provide guidance. You're able to say, this is coming up, elections are coming up. These are the likely consequences or implications for this thing that we want to achieve this year. You begin to advise them, you begin to make recommendations based on the communications perspective that you have. But you cannot do this if you don't even know what's going on in the business and economic landscape. So that is a key area, and that's where a gap is for a lot of us, because a lot of us, we're in our organizations, we're sitting in our departments, we're sitting at our tables, we don't even know what's happening in the programs team, we don't know what's happening in the other departments and the units, and yet we want them to see our value. It's going to be quite tough to do that. The next thing is showing commitment to professional development. Ladies and gentlemen, as many of you may be watching this video, the truth is that you have to be committed to your professional development. You have to be taking courses. We had some professionals that have just finished strategic communications course at the Comms Avenue, and it's a 5-week course, but you could see the growth and the way that their thinking and their perspective has changed just by being in that course, interacting with communications leaders and directors that have decades of experience. You have to show that commitment to your professional development. Things are constantly changing, not just even within the communications practice. You need to be able to know, and that professional development is what's also going to help you to show your value and show that, look, this person is an expert. And you will see in the next point, you must be able to develop a strong professional brand within your industry and your field. That comes from your commitment to your professional development, your thirst for knowledge. Are you going for the right webinars? Are you taking the right training? Are you buying the right books? Are you consuming the right content that is going to help you to grow? Because that is how you will see the ways that you can show value, communicate value, and make sure you're doing things that truly, truly make an impact to your organization. So I discovered this framework last year, and I'm going to do a video. One of the videos I'm going to do probably next week is on frameworks and templates, because people are always asking for templates. And I had to take a step back, and I would say, is it not better for you to know the framework and the structure around this concept? And then it's easier for you to begin to develop your template. But like I said, that is video for another day. I came across this. It's a research, and I will put the link to that research in the description. And when I saw it, I was like, this makes absolute sense. Like, it really, really made sense. And the communications value circle, what it essentially does is it describes value creation within an organization on 2 levels: corporate management and corporate communications. At the core of it is the corporate strategy. Every organization has a corporate strategy, or every forward thinking, and I don't even know the word to use, because I've interacted with organizations and like we're not really sure about our corporate strategy. I'm like, everybody's going to be confused if there's no corporate strategy, but hey, this is not a strategy class. So this is how the communication value circle looks like. So you can see at the heart of it is a corporate strategy. Then you zoom out a little bit, you see tangible assets, room for maneuvering or room for maneuver, intangible assets, opportunities for development. Now, what this framework does is it breaks down how you can create value now through communications and in the areas where there is future value creation. So these 4 things, they fall under corporate management. Now, if you zoom out further, how does corporate communications feed into all of these things? Relationships, trust, legitimacy, and all of that is ensuring flexibility. You have thought leadership, innovation potential, you have crisis resilience, and these are things that can be adjusted within your strategy. You have reputation, brand, and corporate culture, which help you to build on the intangibles because reputation is intangible, right? And then you have publicity, customer preferences, employee commitment. These are the things that facilitate operations. Now, if you look at it along these lines, right, this half of the circle, these are the things that help you to create value within an organization. And this other half, they enable the creation of this value. So if you think about relationships, and I will explain it further. If you think about relationships, relationships help the development of value. You nurture relationships with your key stakeholders, and that brings some sort of value to the organization, either in the short or long term. So this is really, really academic. So I'm really trying to break it down in the best way I can so that you really get the key points on value. I just want to bring out that value to open your eyes to it. And then if you divide it this way, up here is current value creation for the organization. And all of this down here is future value creation. And communications oversees all of these things. We're responsible for building the key and integral relationships. So if your organization doesn't have relationship with certain stakeholders, you should be telling them, we need a relationship with this person. A relationship with these key people are important. We help to build trust. Something I've been talking about recently is the license to operate. Once trust is withdrawn from any organization, either corporate or developmental, that organization has lost its license to exist, its license to operate. So trust is very, very critical. And we're the ones that are managing trust. So anybody that's telling you that you don't have value, say, if I'm not here and you lose trust, this organization cannot exist, right? And that also ties into legitimacy. So all of these factors, when you're thinking about the value of your role, think about it in these 12 dimensions. How am I contributing to building the right relationships? How am I helping this organization to build and maintain trust? Because trust can easily be broken. How am I giving this organization the legitimacy to operate within this country, environment, and context? How am I building thought leadership for this organization or the leaders within this organization? How am I helping this organization to harness its innovation potential? And yes, communications can actually do that. If you've watched my last video on taking the IABC assessment, you will have seen that there's a critical role that communications can play in coaching and advising senior leaders on the new direction or things that they need to take that the organization really isn't doing at the moment. And then crisis resilience. How am I preparing this organization in case there is a crisis? Because it's when there's a crisis that people now value the work we do in communications and PR. But there's crisis resilience that we can begin to take advantage of if we're proactive in our work. Same thing with reputation. How am I even managing the brand identity, right? Our corporate culture, that has a link with HR. But internal communications, part of what you're going to be doing is corporate culture. The publicity, what are we putting out there in terms of our external communications? Customer preferences, how are we making sure that we're top of mind with our customer and we are the most preferred in the category in which or the industry in which we're operating? And then employee commitment, which also speaks to internal communication. So let me explain them very, very briefly. Like I said, I don't want this to be too academic, but I really want you to see where you can begin to define your value so that when they come to you, you're already armed with your answer, but your answer must also be backed by results. So it's one thing to say, oh, I'm absolutely adding value. It's another thing to actually be demonstrating the results that back that value. Just thought to put that there. So communications contributes to organizational objectives by supporting business operations. So if I go back, this is this quarter that we're talking about. We contribute to the business operations through the publicity, customer preferences, and the commitment, employee commitment. So this is done by the content and the messages you disseminate. And this is why you have to be really, really strategic. What are your key messages? Do you really understand your audience? Do you really understand their preferences? How are you raising attention and awareness for strategic issues that are important to your organization? Essentially, knowing what your organization does, how it functions, where it can possibly be, it helps you to deliver on certain outcomes. And then you're managing dialogue between employees, suppliers, customers, and different stakeholders. In your role, a critical thing that you're doing is delivering value to the key stakeholders, and you must be clear on how you are doing that so that when they come and ask you this, you can say, this stakeholder, I am managing this relationship with this stakeholder, sharing this information, this content, and this is the value it is bringing to the organization. But if you don't even know the linkages, you won't be able to articulate the value. The next one is building the intangibles. So the intangibles are the reputation, the brand, the corporate culture, like I said to you before. But those things are very, very, very important. You have to manage the reputation of not only the organization, but you're also managing the reputation of the important representatives. So like the CEO, the executive, because we know when something happens to the CEO or a leader that is associated with the organization, it impacts on the reputation of that organization. So that is what you are doing in your role. So positive reputation and strong brand is relevant to build a strong corporate identity. So you are managing the positive and strong identity for this organization. Please, that's a really, really big deal that money can be attached to it. And can I tell you something? During mergers and acquisitions, there is actually a line item for the worth of a brand. So when you say Coca-Cola is worth X billion dollars or trillion dollars, it is the brand, is an intangible asset, but it comes to bear in situations of crisis, in situations of mergers and acquisitions and takeovers, but there is actually a financial value to a brand. So that's something that we need to really be thinking about. The next one is ensuring flexibility. So having relationships that are based on trust and having a perception of legitimacy. I was saying to you about the license to operate. If that license to operate is questioned or threatened in any way, every value dimension will be affected negatively. If, for example, you work with an organization that produces a product, that product turns out to be poisonous, people don't trust that brand anymore, they boycott it, they go to a competitor's product, and the internal issues that led to that poisonous product are not solved, that can literally kill the organization if that crisis is not managed properly. Who are they going to come to manage the crisis? Is it not us? So that license to operate is very, very critical. So you need to be telling them that, look, I'm contributing to the reason why you have a license to operate, because I'm ensuring that you're maintaining the right relationship. I'm ensuring that we're getting consumer feedback and using that to improve the services that we offer, using that to understand how to better serve the customers and the clients that we have in our, database and all of that. So in times of uncertainty, nothing becomes more important than relational capital, trust, and public acceptance. Again, these things are not very tangible, but they're so crucially important. But you have to be very clear on how they are important and where your organization is in terms of some of these dimensions. And some of these dimensions are measurable. You can measure reputation, you can measure trust. Again, the point about professional development, you need to go and learn, how do I even measure trust for my organization? How do I begin to measure reputation? Those are these metrics and things you need to be looking at so that at the end of the year, you're showing them how reputation was either maintained or even improved as a result of the activities that you did. That is value. I hope that this is really expanding your mind. And the final one is strategy. So as a communications professional in any organization, you can and you should be positioning yourself to contribute to strategic management decisions. And how can you begin to position yourself? How are you building thought leadership within the organization? How are you helping the organization to achieve innovation potential? If you have just started in your career, there's a lot of learning to do, but at least open your mind and see, okay, this thing that my organization wants to do, how best can they do it? Is it even right within the context? Look, if they're saying like they want to go and launch in so country, you should be able to come back and say, based on XYZ, from a communication perspective, I don't think we should start with this country. And then you come back with data. You come back with your information. You're ready because you have a broad view
of what it is that they want to do. And then the crisis resilience. But what all of this means is that you need to be able to listen. You need to be able to listen to the senior leaders. You need to be able to listen to the people in the different departments. So you can't afford, as a communications professional, to just be sitting in your desk and hoping that information will find you. You have to go after the information. You have to know what are the priorities. You have to be speaking with finance. You have to know what's going on, because all of those things help you to see opportunity areas, help you to see possible threats, and it helps you to also refine your activities and how you deliver on them. You also need to be monitoring public opinion. That's something that a lot of us do well. But what are people saying on social media? What's the market saying? Now, monitoring the market, if you work in financial services, that may be a bit technical, but you can find someone that can explain it to you. Politics and society, what are they saying? Because all of this actually impacts on your work. When you stay abreast and ahead of it, then you can begin to deliver things that are valuable to your organization. And I love it when it says corporate communications contributes to identifying competitive advantage. And it's so true. I'm engaging with a client now, and we finished the first phase of a reputation research. And when I was presenting to the client, I said to them, these are areas where you are actually very positioned to take advantage of, and it will boost your positioning within the industry. And they were like, wow, that they didn't even realize or see things like that. I'm a communications person. I'm not an expert in their industry. But as I did the research, we did surveys, we did the industry research, we engaged with people, stakeholders internally and externally. We saw that actually this organization is in the best position. There's a gap within this industry, and this organization is in the best position to take advantage or utilize that gap to close it and then position itself as a leader within this industry. You can do that from a communications perspective. And when you begin to deliver activities that bring about such outcomes, nobody is going to be asking you, what's the value of communications? So essentially, the value of communications comes in the ability to maintain and build trust. If I can give you an assignment, please go and learn about trust. How is trust built? How is trust measured? How is trust managed, right? And then you protect the reputation of your organization, and you advise senior leaders and departments in line with organizational goals and strategy. Now, some of you may say, oh, I don't have access to the CEO. I can't advise. But who can you begin to influence and advise where you are, so that they begin to see, this person is actually thinking about the organization from a strategic perspective. This person is actually thinking about the good of the organization. And you have to put yourself in that position now. Think like a leader. Think like someone that's forward thinking. Think like someone that is the CCO, because it will not just fall into your lap. If you just go about being the person that they give orders to and you're yes, ma, yes, sir, they will keep asking you what's the value. So you really, really do have to be proactive. So what does this mean for you as a communications professional, whatever level that you're in? It means that you need to have a correct and in-depth understanding of what communications is and how it adds value within any organization. I cannot count the number of times where people believe that the value of communication is in the tactics, social media, press release, events. I'm like, no, sir, no, ma. That's not where the value is. The value is in how these activities are contributing to delivering objectives and outcomes that are important to this organization. Because if you do this activity, these events, and it doesn't lead back to sales for corporate organization, it doesn't lead back to donors, it doesn't lead back to improved relationship with stakeholders, it doesn't lead back to improved reputation, you have just spent money. And then they'll start calling it vanity metrics. So you really need to be clear. Again, professional development, this is where you begin to close those knowledge gaps, and pay attention to doing that. Always be clear on what your organization wants to achieve and what is important to your senior leaders. You need to be engaging them. If you say to me you don't have access to your CEO, who has access to your CEO? And ask them this question: what are our priorities? So quarter one is about to end. Things may have shifted because, a lot is going on in the world right now. The things that you predicted last year may not have necessarily panned out. So your leaders may be making adjustments. Have you asked your leaders, what are our priorities for Q2? So that if priorities have changed, you have to be tweaking something in your communication strategy. You cannot be implementing a communication strategy that you developed last year when certain metrics and setting objectives and outcomes for your organization has changed. So you need to be able to have these conversations. What does this organization want to achieve? What is important to us by the end of 2024? What is absolutely critical? And I've talked about this quite a bit in one of my strategic comms course, so I won't go too deep. But honestly, I really want you to know that you have to be clear on what your organization wants to achieve. You have to be clear on what's important to your senior leaders, because at the end of the year, you must be reporting on things that are important to the organization. If not, they will just feel like you've spent money. You have to frame the value of the work that you do in terms of outcomes and not outputs alone. And outputs alone means, oh, the event you actually did, the press releases you sent out, the content you created, those are fantastic. I don't believe that, sometimes you say they're vanity metrics. We call them vanity metrics because we usually stop there. Oh, we got 50,000 new followers. Okay. What does that translate to for the organization? These things are important. Those activities and those metrics are important because an increase in followers means more people are getting to see your organization or know about what your organization does. But then beyond that, what is that translating to? So out of that 50,000, how many percent of them went to your website? How many percent of them, click to volunteer or register for the event? You must be able to measure, and that's what outcome is. So again, please watch my video on the strategic comms course and the measurable objectives. I also have courses on this as well that takes you into the nitty-gritty of doing that. Outputs are really just a part of the bigger picture. You can't just stop at saying we did an event and 10,000 people attended. Okay, fantastic, great. What did that do for us at the end of the day? Because what that means is you've spent a lot of money, but when they ask you for return on investment, you're stuck because you're like, well, 10,000 people came. But then if you can measure the numeric value of those 10,000 people or the fraction of the 10,000 people that engaged or did one thing or the other, then you're beginning to communicate value. So you need to use evidence-based methodology to demonstrate the true impact of your activities and how you are supporting organizations' goals. Again, I have a course on this, on measuring, on tracking the key metrics, because sometimes the things you need to track, the CRM, doesn't sit with you as communications. But if you're thinking about it, then you can go to sales and say, how many people called this number? How many of them have signed up? How much did that translate into? You need to be able to use evidence-based methodologies. Sometimes you may need to do surveys, but you have to know what the connecting points are. You have to know the metrics that you need to be measuring and tracking so that you can now say, okay, we did this, that led to this, that brought a total of this, or saved this organization X amount, that brought this organization an increase in reputation by 10 places. You have to be able to say it. It is work, but it is doable. So don't convince yourself that communications doesn't contribute to the bottom line. That's a lie. We actually do. It's just that we do not pay attention to tracking the metrics that allows us to really quantify how we are contributing to the bottom line. And contributing to the bottom line, let me just say, it's not even in terms of money alone, but maybe that's another class. And then finally, like I said before, you must be investing in your professional development and your growth. You need to be learning about measurement. You need to be learning about strategy. You need to be learning about tactics. You need to be learning about, thinking about the minds of the CEOs, the C-suite. How do they think? You need to be learning about reporting. There's just so much learning that you need to have, and it's a constant thing. You never stop learning as a communications professional. So communications and public relations can have a tangible, measurable impact on the achievement of an organization's long-term goals, but only, and I've underlined it, if professionals recognize both the importance of demonstrating their outcomes and likewise they have the knowledge and analytical skills to do so. And that's where it is. What we do as communications and PR professionals is absolutely valuable. But the question is, do you understand the value? Do you know how to harness this value? Do you know how to showcase this value? Do you know how to deliver this value? Do you know how to communicate this value? And do you know how to put this value in plain terms that your executives and your senior leaders will understand? And that really comes from really understanding the outcomes, really understanding the knowledge and the analytical skills that you need to be able to deliver that. So I hope that this was valuable for you. Like I said, I'll put the link to the article. Please read it. If you have more questions about this, ask me. But when people ask you about the value that you're delivering in your role, come back to this video. Even if you take one of the dimensions in terms of reputation, in terms of trust, in terms of brand, in terms of thought leadership, and then begin to say, how am I using this, or how am I bringing out the value of this within the organization, you will find that it will be easier to answer those questions, or that question.
So that's pretty much the communication value circle framework. And I really hope that helps you to see the key points in terms of really articulating your value. If I can just do a quick wrap up in terms of takeaways, number one, be very, very clear about the results that you can deliver for any organization. Your work is absolutely important. Your work should not be reduced to social media management or writing press releases alone. There's things that you do that are integral to the existence, the core existence of the organization, and you have to be mindful of that. And I said it a number of times, you also need to be committed to your professional development, because a lot of these areas you need to know, you need to understand, how is reputation built and managed, what are the dimensions of trust, how do I make sure that we continue to maintain the right relationship with our stakeholders. You need to be aware of what's going on within your context, within your country, within your industry. And then you must always be committed to communicating the results that you deliver. Please don't do great work in silence. It really hasn't helped anybody. It hasn't helped our profession. So I hope that you're able to use all of this, and going forward, you'll be able to answer that question. What value do you bring to the table? See you in the next video. Bye.